I was told that it's a long weekend and that Mumbai walas may find it difficult to come. But from what we see over here, far from. So thank you all very much for taking out time and joining us at the Business Today Best CEO Awards in Mindrush. Your presence means a lot to us. To talk about one of the most celebrated icons of India Inc. and one of the big winners at our awards, we are delighted to be joined by Sir Sunil Bharti Mittal, the first Indian to be knighted by King Charles III. A big honor this. You know, it's one of the most cliched questions, but Sir Mittal ban ke kaisa lag raha hai? How does life change between not being Sir and being Sir?
No. I thankfully, as a foreign national, I don't have to put the Sir as the title, so I remain just Sunil, and that's perfectly fine. And of course, this is a rare and indeed a very special honor, and that only a handful of foreigners have received this for nearly a century. Especially, it talks a lot about India's rise on the world stage. You know, this award is as much an award for some of the efforts I have made in Indo-UK partnership, trade ties, but importantly, I think it is truly a testimony to what India is today. A recognition of an Indian is today seen as a very, I would say, an accepted form, whereas I would say some decades back or even some years back, that would have been a very different moment. So from that point of view, I think you're seeing Indians being celebrated in various forms and shapes as CEOs of companies, as celebrated chefs around the world, as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, and of course as politicians.
You know, it's also something that you've cultivated and worked on, whether it is Africa, whether it is Europe, the United States. Was this always part of your leadership plan and vision, or is this something that just happened along the way? Because while you're fully Desi in your orientation, you're trying to ensure that you have a very Videshi and global outlook.
I guess, you know, your upbringing has a lot to do with it. It depends on what kind of atmosphere, environment one grows up in. As you know, I don't come from a business family, so my entire life of growing up was hardcore politics, and in later years, hardcore diplomacy, because my father was on the United Nations circuit in the last 10, 12 years. He's mostly in Beijing, New York, Tokyo. He had his offices there. So, you know, you pick up these things, kind of get seducted into what happens in the house, what goes around. And international affairs was always a fascination for me. I was a lousy student for anything in mathematics or science, but I was good with international relations, and that's something I've always enjoyed. So besides doing business, or rather business was a medium or a vehicle for me to really enjoy the work that I mostly enjoy, and that is international relations. You know, I have had the fortune of being the president of CII. I have chaired the International Chamber of Commerce for 7 years in Paris. I've served on the Carnegie Endowment Board, which is the foremost think tank in the world. And now I'm on the board of Council for Foreign Relations in New York, which is again a think tank. So my engagement with the UN, with the OECD, with G20 by virtue of being B20, and Africa has been pretty deep, you see. So I enjoy this, and it's quite a, you know, fortunate thing that I also create businesses alongside. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been that enjoyable.
You know, last time we spoke was at the Business Today India at 100 event. And at that time, you were planning for the rollout of the 5G services for Airtel. If you want to share with people sitting here what to expect next, when it comes, because, you know, 2G happened, 3G, 4G, 5G. What happens next? There's talk of 6G. What does 6G look like in the real world? And how would the lives of those sitting here get impacted? What should they expect from the future of mobile telephony?
You know, what you have to see, the base industry, which is the industry of connectivity, is what it enables all other industries to do. 4G started a massive wave of heavy data usage in a variety of forms. It created and spawned industries which were never thought about before, because you had capacity on the network, you had speed. And these two things brought in fanciful things, you know, they created multiple businesses around the globe. Now, when you are at the cusp of AI taking really deep roots and shape in every facet of our life, in anything that we'll do in the future, whether it's Preeta's business or Dr. Treha's business in medical science, or indeed industrial, manufacturing areas, or public services. What does this do? 5G allows you now speeds which are 20x of 4G. More importantly, the latency goes down to almost 10, 12 milliseconds, which means if a robotic surgery has to be performed in a village, you can do it in really real time. If there's a blood oozing out of an operation, something going wrong, you can control it there and then. You don't have to have a delayed response. An autonomous vehicle, if it has to brake within milliseconds, it can do so. If drones, which are going to be all over the world, they have to operate and not collide with each other, they can be taken care of. But importantly, in 5G, you can slice and dice. If you need a specific service, I can give it to you as an individual. So let's say a school bus going on an autonomous mode with children in it. That will get a very different service than a music file that is going on a Spotify. You couldn't do that in 4G. So that is the capability of 5G. You can do a lot more on a specific tailor-made design for each end use. And that's very important. And it was earlier mentioned by Siddharth, not many use cases have come through. My own view is they will come through. And my industry will not create the use cases. My industry has created a super highway. People who are brilliant in technology and all our startup ecosystem, they will create a lot of stuff. Yes, it's a bit of a disappointment that it's not come as fast as we thought.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think sometimes, technology takes time to take shape. Industrial 4.0, which we talk about, some experiments have started to happen. We are running in Bosch, we are running in Suzuki, Maruti Suzuki, some experiments. But even globally, you are still not seeing. By now, if you really look at it on the timeline, autonomous driving should have happened. It has still not taken shape. There are regulatory issues, there are still technological glitches. They are coming through, they'll come through. The drones are coming around, but it's taking time. So I would say there is a bit of a delay. But the good news is the platform is ready now. You can do what you have to do with all those fanciful things. And they will come. It's only a matter of time.
This is what you're seeing in your front view mirror. I'm talking about crystal gazing. From here on, what should people expect once the potential of 5G is unlocked to the extent that it can? What's the next frontier?
Adoption of AI. And you can't do that without a solid platform of 5G plus or going on to 6G. So if you have to, go beyond your device, your wearables, real-time computing, decisions being taken in real time. Look at my network. We run millions of bytes on a second basis. How do you decipher between what is required by each segment of the market, each segment of the customers, what is important? This can only be done if the compute power is very strong at the back and equally it's accessing real-time information. So what we call edge computing, you will need to do compute at the very end where the application is happening, not the submarine cables taking everything back onto internet world into the US or Singapore from the internet exchange and bringing it back. So all those things will require new technologies. If everybody in the world has to use newer technologies, latest technology, whether from defense, fighter jets, onto robotic surgeries, onto daily management of our lives, refrigerators ordering food when it gets empty, all this will require massive compute power and importantly, very high quality connectivity. Our industry, my job is to continue to be at the leading edge of that.
So you said that this is the age of AI. And we're also seeing a lot of the cutting edge innovations in artificial intelligence, largely coming out of the United States, some in China. On a more macro perspective, obviously because you've created the superhighway, it's hugely beneficial for you. But if you just keep aside your own corporate interest and look at the larger picture, do you see India as being a net beneficiary of being in the age of AI, or do you think we could end up as one of the big losers because we have a large population? Not all of them are adequately skilled to be able to harness the potential of AI. So even before we can benefit from the demographic bulge, could we end up having to deal with the negative consequences of joblessness caused by AI?
No, I remain very optimistic. I mean, every time a technology cycle has come through, right from the time of computers being introduced, when there was an outcry that they'll take away jobs, all we have seen is more industries, more jobs, more exciting opportunities have been created. So similarly, the same thing will happen here. Some jobs will go away. I mean, just to give you a crude example, Airtel had about 100 call centers at one point in time. Today, probably we may have 8 or 10. I mean, call centers are becoming a problem. So that was a big job generating areas. But the back offices haven't gone down. there is so much happening on the back end, which are not call centers, but there's a lot of digital stuff that is happening in the back, serving the bank, serving the e-commerce industry, serving many new age industries. Jobs have gone up. It's my belief, and what I hear in the chatter, in the next government, the main focus is going to be tourism, education and skills. To my mind, tourism alone, if India was to really truly achieve its potential in tourism, you're talking about millions and millions of new jobs that are going to be created. And imagine, all those people wearing those glasses which are looking at an object, and you have the full history in front of you, and you can tell the tourists what's going on, and they can talk to you, they can see images, you can go inside, virtually inside certain monuments that you can't generally see. So there will be opportunities galore. Yes, some jobs will be lost in some areas. Menial, low quality jobs can go down, but better quality jobs will replace them in much larger quantities.
So you spoke initially of your political connections. I have two questions. One, in terms of the political and economic journey of India in the last 10 years, as an end user, how much do you think is hype and how much do you think is reality? What do you make of India's economic evolution in the past decade?
Let me try to take it in a different way. I think Amitabh spoke about scale. What does India offer? India offers massive scale. And my industry is a testimony to that. There is, when I talk to people that you charge $2.50, $3 in India to give 2 gigabytes a day, people just can't believe it. And the fact is, we are reasonably okay on return on capital. You can always get better given the investments here. But scale allows you to go down in pricing. Whether from fossil fuel to green, as was discussed, this is the only country where you can actually go down. And similarly, in EV, that will happen. So scale is very important to keep in mind. Why India is a real story today, and not just a hype, because the scale is there. 1.5 billion largely young, hungry, consuming customers wanting services, new products, gizmos, technology, gaming. I mean, you talk about anything, there's a massive amount of consumption. This is a very solid asset that is available to any nation. Then you need solid leadership. I think India was always very good. If you really look back in time, what has happened? We are the same people. I mean, we are the same Indians which were there 20 years back struggling, and we spoke about the bottom 5 or the laggards 5 or the
fragile 5.
Yeah, fragile 5 to where we are today. It's the same India, it's the same resources, the same people. You sometimes have to pick yourself up, galvanize yourself, boost your morale, have the confidence that you are good. Why are you always looking at foreign products, foreign services, foreign investment to be great? I think that change has happened. That is for real, no question about it. Today, when a search company looks at a CEO of a large company or a super large company, we're talking about trillion-dollar companies, Indians come top on the list, not Chinese. And Chinese may be smart, but because India is an acceptable currency in the world, people, its heritage, its background, its culture, the diversity it offers, and of course, one begets another one. You see success stories around the world, you get more. That's for real now. India's economic growth is for real. If you were to ask me, are there areas where there is stress in the market? Yes, of course. Every economic cycle will have certain areas which will be under stress. But by and large, in a country like India, the size of India, growing at 7.5%, 8%, 8.5% completely changes the country. But hype is not bad. It's good to have hype. Sometimes you have to brand yourself well. You have to show yourself well, even better than where you are, because then you aspire to get even better. Nobody looks at a shop which is tired, which is not attractive, which is not well lit up, which doesn't have its wares displayed very well. That is I would say, prerequisite. So even that is good.
So you spoke of the murmurs you're hearing about the policy agenda for the next government. I want you to tell us what you think, which whoever comes to power should really be doing to try and step up the speed of the growth of the India story. From where we've reached, you spoke of stress that you're seeing, so to alleviate that stress and to try and march forward with greater purpose and speed, what would you like to see?
Well, I think one thing which government has done very well in the last, particularly 4 or 5 years, is putting hundreds of billions of dollars at work on infrastructure. I think we were very, very far behind on infrastructure. We as a private sector have done good on the digital infrastructure, the highway, but roads, airports, ports, railways, these are very important instruments of any economy. I think that investment would, if it would have not been made in good time, I think India would not have been able to capitalize on its true, strength. Today that is there now. And we all as private sector, as Mr. Kant mentioned, need to ride on that now. I don't think so government will pull back. They'll keep on probably investing more. You will see more privatization programs probably coming up in the next year, next government. Manufacturing, which seemed to be an area where India may have never picked up momentum, suddenly has transformed. And again, the aspiration of India, we'll make our own microchips, we will make our own semiconductor, we'll make our own electronics, we will become a manufacturing hub, is become real. It's suddenly not a hype anymore. It looked like hype 4 years back, it's become real now. So in 10 years' time from now, manufacturing will be a serious industry in this country, for the entire world, So I remain very optimistic. I feel investments...
Is most of this manufacturing capacity that's coming up really just to cater to the domestic needs of the Indian economy? How much of this is India becoming a global export hub for manufacturing? I mean, there's so much talk of China plus one, but a lot of that investment really going to Vietnam, going even to Mexico because of nearshoring. Are we not really living up to the hype when it comes to manufacturing for the rest of the world?
No. First of all, Vietnam is a tiny market. When they manufacture for the world. India, when it manufactures for the world, has an advantage that it has a massive domestic market. That makes it supremely more strategically important for investors around the world. That an Apple comes here, he's saying, let me put something here. I have a very large market domestically, and yet I'll also export. Walmart comes here to look at the Indian market, but then says, I will do a $10 billion export, and ends up doing $30-40 billion of export commitment. So it's a big plus that you come into India, you manufacture for domestic market, get your scale, and go back and sell back at a high price in the Western markets as well. So it's a great advantage.
This evening is about celebrating leadership with you as the business icon. What if young people, young entrepreneurs in a small town, whether it's in Haryana or elsewhere, watching, what's the one lesson that you'd like to leave them with?
Well, I think this is a country of possibilities. This is a country of opportunities. When our time was there, when we were young, when we were growing up, accessing capital was very difficult. You needed hard assets to get money from the banks. In any case, getting money from the banks was not easy, but you needed machinery, land, assets, building. And what comes first? Money or buildings or assets? So it was always a challenge. Today, an idea is funded, and you don't even need to go to a bank. There are people lining up to fund your ideas. Think big. Think for the future. This is a country which offers opportunities. Here's a government which supports opportunities, government which fires up in ecosystems. Startups are hugely celebrated in this country now. So I would say this is India's moment. This is moment for young Indians. And they must embrace this with a lot of confidence and a lot of optimism.
One of the things you're working on now is OneWeb, satellite communications. Elon Musk is working a lot in that space as well. How do you see that getting implemented in India, given the costs and given the fact that a lot of the dark areas that you're trying to cover, anybody in that space is trying to cover, are areas where the ability to purchase and consume may not be as much. So how do you see that play out in the Indian context?
Well, first of all, satellite communications will always be complementary to what we are doing. I can't go into Himalayas and deep deserts and forests and high seas and in the skies. The only way to do that is through satellite telephony. Wherever there's a fiber, you can't beat it on pricing with a mobile telephony. Wherever there's a mobile telephony, at least in the near future, satellite can't price it well compared to that. So that leaves the dark area. But there are 3 billion people in the world who are not connected to internet. 3 billion people. India has many, even places like US and Europe have many dark areas which need to be connected. It is not going to be expensive. First of all, it's about $160, $170 per MB per month. So it's a fairly reasonably priced service, but it's more a community service. Either military will use it, Navy will use it, or you drop a terminal into a village, and through that Wi-Fi you connect all the homes. So per customer, per home will become smaller. And then keep in mind there is about 70,000 crores of USO fund which we have contributed lying in with the government. That must be used for these kind of services to provide community Wi-Fi through satellite to all these villages. It's a fabulous discovery of modern minds that we now have finally, it's been a holy grail for our industry how to go into those dark areas. We now finally have the solution. Use it.
Sir Sunil Mittal, thank you very much for taking our time and joining us here. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us at the Business Today Best CEO Awards. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.